There, we're live. Corey, hello.
Hi.
We are only 1 hour late to this live stream. Um,
Just a little late.
Phenomenal. How are you doing, Corey?
I'm doing well. Life has got me stressed, trying to find a house and all that stuff, but
There you
it's
go.
good. You know,
Congratulations on the house and the house hunting and whatnot. We just talked about it briefly,
yeah.
so that is exciting. Hello to everyone coming into the chat: David, Ethan, Giovanni, Jordan, Counson, everybody else, Siren. For all of you that are just joining, this is Corey. Corey runs a YouTube channel where he talks about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The play
Yep.
reaction. Corey, if you want to go ahead and talk in the live stream chat so everybody can go find your channel.
Will do.
Seriously, go check it out. Corey does some awesome videos on all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Insanely well edited. He's got After Effects. He's got Adobe Premiere. He's got green screens. Everything. Seriously, everything. It's phenomenal. You guys need to check it out.
I do my best.
No, absolutely, man. You do some phenomenal work on there. So, Corey, one thing I want to get started real quick right now is so right now currently the combine's going on, right? And we're not.
Yeah.
So I just want to point this out, and I have it on Twitter. Okay. Um, Now keep in mind the Bucks do not need this player, but I want to get your thoughts on this player. Okay. So,
Okay.
did you know DK Metcalf is 6'3", weighs 228 pounds, bench pressed 225 pounds 27 times, and
Yeah.
ran a 4.33 40-yard dash.
It's unbelievable.
What
Unbelievable.
what is that? What
You know
kind
what
of
that
human
is?
being is that?
You know what that reminds me of, James?
What?
Is people are comparing him to Julio Jones, but I think that's too short of memory. I think we need to go all the way back to Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
Uh, that guy was an athletic freak, and I'm one of my favorite players of all time. I grew up a Georgia Tech fan, even though I'm wearing this Florida hat here.
Hmm.
I went to Florida. I grew up a Georgia Tech fan, and Calvin Johnson was all that in a bag of chips. I mean, he was huge. He had all the measurables that DK had and ran a 4.340 in someone else's shoes. He decided to run last minute in the 40 in the combine and ended up running a similar time. So,
It,
I mean, you don't want to overhype somebody with combine numbers, but when they're that good,
well, the craziest part was people were saying that he was already going to be like probably a top 20, top 15 first round pick just
yeah,
from his ability at he went to Ole Miss, correct? So
yeah,
from what he was able to do at that college and just his insanely impressive physique, the man has 1.6% body fat. I didn't even think a number like that was achievable, but he's done it. And then just to see how freakishly huge he is,
yeah,
and then see how athletic he is, and then know that he is a productive wide receiver. He's got good hands. It's not like he's just some natural freak athlete. He's a natural freak athlete who can catch the football well. So
yeah.
like people were basing his ability as a wide receiver already having him towards the um, top of the first round. You know what I mean? So just insanity. Just insanity. Now there's people saying he could go top 5 even.
Right.
Do you see a situation where that could happen? Because I remember they even asked John Gruden about it.
Yeah, that the hype is real there. I really think this helps us a lot because that's a position we don't need, unfortunately, because I think I would like to have him on this team. But that just means that people might be willing to draft him early or even trade up to get him. If as long as his stock keeps rising, we always want it. Where it's just like last year, we want the QB, the wide receiver, or tight end. We want the stock to keep rising on the positions that aren't positions of need for us. That works out well for us. So I hope so. I'm rooting for him. Also, I am in a dynasty league and I want to draft him. So
Seriously, oh my gosh. Wherever he goes,
yeah.
wherever he goes, he's just going to be an
Well,
absolute star.
the issue is if he goes to Baltimore, that might kill him because I have zero faith in Lamar Jackson. I think it's ridiculous they're hanging that whole franchise on his shoulders because he's just not a passer. But
Yeah, I
you're
feel that.
on.
Moving to wide receiver.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I know it's been a little while since you've talked about some Bucks football. So, a lot of stuff has happened, Corey.
Yeah.
Few moves have happened. We're gonna go through a little bit of a timeline right now with you. So the last thing you talked about was the hiring of Bruce Arians. I want to get your thoughts on that a little bit. What do you think that he's done, not just in terms of him as the head coach, but his entire staff, guys like Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich, Harold Goodwin, among others, Todd McNair, Casey Rogers, all those types of guys. Like, who are some guys you're excited about on this coaching staff?
I just overall generally loved his approach, Bruce Arians, that is, to the coaching staff. Number one, hiring a bunch of guys, going kind of against the grain with the league, which isn't apparently it's kind of a trend that's starting up. But I think it's great that he is pursuing getting guys reps, giving everybody a chance. I may have said this before. I know I've said it on a stream before. I don't know whose stream, if it was my own, but there's a saying that goes, be a raving fan publicly and a honest critic privately. And I think that's the tactic that Bruce Arians takes. So the reason I say that is because the first thing that's come to mind is all these recent kind of quotes that's been pulled from him, especially at the combine, where he's talking about, hey, yeah, we want DeSean Jackson here. He's great and all that stuff. And, oh, yeah, we love Peyton Barber. And, yeah, we definitely want Gerald McCoy. Like, we want everybody here. So, that's coach speak. Of course, he's going to praise his players, but that goes a long way for the guys in the locker room, that if your coach is a champion for you, whether or not you're going to be traded or cut or whatever, I think Bruce Arians is that kind of leader where, he will be straight shooter, very honest with you up front, but he will not throw you under the bus publicly unless you probably deserve it. I mean, we heard him talk about Antonio Brown, how he's kind of a diva.
Right.
I think he would be selective in calling people out publicly. It would be to motivate them. I think he doesn't do anything on accident.
Right.
And that's what I love seeing so far from Bruce Arians. And then, about the coaches, I'm getting more and more excited about Todd Bowles and the defensive scheme changes he's going to bring. It's looking more and more like, there's been some question on like, oh, is he going to go 3-4? Is he going to go 4-3? Is it going to be a mixture? It's probably going to be a mixture, but I am seeing a lot more kind of hints that it's going to be a 3-4 base, because there's talk of, Noah Spence coming in and resurrecting his career being, an outside linebacker. So I'm excited to see what this defense is going to look like. And, yeah, I mean, that's for me. I still, every time I think about it, I'm like, man, Bruce Arians is our head coach. That's crazy. And I get excited all over again. So
it's weird. Yeah. Like, I'm insane, for a little bit now. It still feels weird having a guy like Bruce Arians as our head coach,
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is like a guy, it's not like he's a top guy, like he's one of the top coaches in the past few years. And we lured him out of retirement and got him on the team. So it still feels weird, It feels like it feels like it almost shouldn't happen for a team with as bad luck as the Bucs have had lately,
Well, and I'm trying on one hand not to get too hyped up, because this is the Buccaneers and they've found new ways to break our hearts every single year, and this would just be another different way to break our hearts. But it's hard not to get excited.
Right, exactly. No, It'll be good. It'll be good. So taking away all of the moving past the head coaching signings, there's also been a little bit of a few personnel moves that have already been done. Some guys have been reported that they're going to be staying on the team. Player or two has been released from the team, and a player or two has been signed to the team. Let's talk about the first instance of something that had happened, and that was Vinny Curry was released. One thing I'm kind of curious about is why, and it's actually, the more I think about it, the more strange I thought it was we've heard rumors of guys like Gerald McCoy might get released, and guys like DeSean Jackson might get released, and maybe Cameron Bray will get released, and Mitchon Ryan, Bo Allen, all these other types of guys. Why do you think Vinny Curry was released so early on in the process when compared to these other types of guys?
That is a good question, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think the writing was on the wall for Vinny Curry, and it may have just been a thing where it's like, let's not toy around here. He may have wanted to be released so he could get a jump on, having his agent talk to teams for free agency. I don't think there was any bad blood or anything. It's just unfortunately another situation where a free agent did not pan out for us, and we had Carl Nassib step up. We had JPP take over. So it's just one of those things like, let's call a spade a spade. Let's call it what it is. This is not a fit. So let's, get you on out of here, especially if we are changing the scheme up. So maybe that's just what it was.
Right. I think another part of it could be maybe they're just trying to gauge some trade interest for more of those high tier type of guys.
Sure.
Something along those lines, possibly. I'm not sure. But another thing that happened, now this is what was reported by Rick Stroud, and I've seen some stuff, and I'm going to ask your opinions on it here. Rick Stroud is saying that Gerald McCoy is going to return for the 2019-2020 season. And a lot of people have picked up on that. They say it's going to happen. What do you think? Do you think that that's a confirmed thing now, or do you feel it's smoke and mirrors? Because I've seen some people say, specifically Chad Forbes on Twitter, say, well, if they're going to release Gerald McCoy, they're going to do it after the draft because they don't want to reveal their draft plans right now by releasing McCoy. And what's going on? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm not sure I trust. I'm not sure I trust any of the report coming out of this time in general. But the fact Stroud reported it, and I think I was listening to that Peter Nation podcast where Scott Reynolds was saying, like, hey, I looked into it. My sources, none of them could say for sure where he was going or what was happening. No one could confirm the report. And so that makes me think that I'm not saying that. I mean, Stroud obviously isn't lying. He's sticking with his sources, what his sources are telling him. And I'm wondering if that's kind of smoke that they're putting out there to kind of drudge up some trade value, that maybe somebody would want to trade for him. Mm-hmm. And the same goes for DeSean Jackson. I mean, I think they're both kind of in the same boat where, there's a lot of hype around them staying with this team right now. And I just don't trust it because I think both of them have trade value. And I think this team is trying to get that out of some teams. And it's just going to be hard to know until, well, maybe a week or two from now when free agency starts up.
Right, because that was something I was thinking. I thought, is Stroud working with the Bucs here? That's how deep I thought about it. Was Stroud's in on it? Stroud's throwing up some smoke and mirrors himself. He's been a part of the plan all along.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to think because I thought whenever I saw the Stroud report, I thought, okay, well that's it. He's staying. And I even made a video talking about he was staying. But then I think it was like a couple days later. I see everybody saying, well, I can't confirm that. Well, I can't confirm that either. And it's like, well, what's going on? It's been one of the most confusing, not even anxiety, but it's like, it's been one of the more confusing, really like sitting there, edge of your seat, waiting to see what happens type of stories so far this off season,
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how much trade value there. I don't know if we could get anything from McCoy, honestly. It's a deep draft for defensive linemen. I know he's still probably viewed around the league as, one of the elite D tackles. So I don't know. I don't even know what we could get out of him. But, I guess you got to try. Right. When it's a player that's been that good and that elite for so many years, you got to try. And I think that's what the Bucs are doing. And that doesn't mean they will get anything, but why release him now when there's the potential there,
Right. I feel you. Another quick thing. Signing happened. Andre Ellington, what are your thoughts on that? I know I've seen a lot of people say he's the new Jaquiz Rogers. My thought was he's the new Jaquiz Rogers. What's your thought on it real quick?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, Jaquiz Rogers was brought on here because of familiarity with Cutter, and same thing with Ellington and Bruce Arians. And they're, he's a guy who can catch out of the backfield and can be a role player. So the question I was asking, because it's just like, okay, now you have Peyton Barber, you have Rojo, who also is getting some offseason hype, which I don't know what to believe or not, Mm-hmm. And then you have Jaquiz, who probably be released. You have Ellington now. You still have guys like Dare and Sean Wilson. I'm wondering if there's room, both in cap and on roster, for us to make any more running back moves apart from maybe drafting a guy.
Right.
And if we draft a guy, he's going to be buried on that depth chart. So I'm just wondering if I feel like this is kind of it.
Right.
There's nobody in free agent wise that would take over Peyton Barber besides Lev Bell, and we're not doing that. We're not. we're not doing that. So for me, with that Ellington signing, the question I was asking, does this mean like we? I don't know if I don't know if we'll go after a guy like Tevin Coleman. I just don't see a spot on this roster for him unless we were going to get rid
Of Barber
of.
or Jones or something along those lines.
I feel like Ellington it would take the role of what that Coleman would play. Not that Ellington is as good of a player, but he has that familiarity, and I think that may be what Bruce Arians is thinking. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know if I would be surprised to see this be it. Like this might just be our running backs this year,
Right.
which would be crazy to think about considering how much of a need, quote unquote, that it is. But they may be thinking that hey, offensive line was garbage last year, and that was the reason, and then Peyton Barber might still have some potential there. I don't know. And Rojo.
Right, and even at the Combine, Bruce Arians said that he's been really impressed with Peyton Barber. He thinks that Peyton Barber does a lot of subtle things that, for a man of his size that are really good in terms of him being a running back. So maybe he wants to roll with Peyton Barber. And then on the matter of Ronald Jones, he said that he's excited and anxious to see if he can do some of the things with Ronald Jones that he did in Arizona. Now that's what he said. He didn't necessarily say David Johnson type things. I thought that was what he originally said, but I'm going to correct myself here. He just said do some of the things that he did in Arizona, which does technically, lead up to David Johnson type things, but it's kind of more of just trying to use Ronald Jones as more of like a dual threat type of back, which the previous coaching staff, they quote-unquote tried, but they half-tried, in my opinion. I think they tried just for the sake of saying that they tried, and then they went back to Jaquiz Rogers.
Yeah, Rojo dropped a lot of easy passes last year, and by a lot, I mean, a handful. And every drop that he had just really, it was like every miss that Nick Folk had, just like with every one, it just fuels the narrative that he can't catch.
Right.
And we don't know that he can't catch. We just know that he hasn't been catching, and like he can learn. So I don't know. I've been up and down on Rojo. I've been mostly down on Rojo for this entire time, ever since he was drafted. So we'll see. That's the thing about this coaching staff is like they have my full confidence and trust, man. I mean, they more so than any other staff we've had probably since Gruden, that I have faith as far as evaluating talent. And even Gruden couldn't really do it that well, it turned out. So
yeah, it's true. Well, now Gruden has a ton of chances because now he's got 3 first-round picks. So we'll see with that one. That's pretty much it in terms of overall news bits before free agency and before the Combine. Obviously, there's been the rumors of will or will not DeSean Jackson stay. To see your thoughts on that real quick. What do you think is going to happen with DeSean Jackson? I think that he's a very strong... I think he's already getting talked about getting traded at this Combine right now.
Right.
I think his name's being thrown around a lot. And then if they don't see anything, then I think they'll release him after this weekend. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would be shocked to see D-Jax come back. I think he could. I mean, if Arians really just takes him under his wing and says, "Hey, I've got you," but it just doesn't seem like a attitude fit. Based on what Arians has said in the past too, of just like guys who need to be team guys, and D-Jax has not exhibited that when he's not getting the ball. So there's that, and then just the fact that DeSean and Jameis just have not clicked. So what makes us think that they could fix that? They've had 2 years to do it. I don't see it happening.
Right, and it's funny because they've asked Bruce Arians about this a lot, and he said, we're gonna have a sit down, love to have him back. He said that a couple of times, and then at the Combine he said, well, did you have that sit down with DeSean Jackson? Yes, I did. How'd it go? Well, in my opinion, it went very well. You'd have to ask DeSean for his opinion, but in my opinion, it went really well. So I'd love to...
there. I hear it's like, well, you got to ask him. That sounds like it's like, well, I was honest with him, and he probably didn't like a lot of what I had to say. That's kind of what I hear.
Right.
But
that was what I thought as well, because if he could just say, it went really well, and then that's it, Not just say, well, you got to ask DeSean about his opinion.
Right.
That's what he said, and, he said that he'd love... I'm excited working with him, love to have him back, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that one line got me too whenever I heard it. You'd have to ask him about his opinion of it. It's like, well, wait a minute, you know.
Possibility he has a different opinion.
Right, and especially like what you said earlier, where on the outside he'll support you till the end, but on the inside he's really going to criticize you. I feel like it was probably that kind of talk, you know. I could see that definitely being a thing, but I think his name is definitely getting thrown around in terms of trade talks. And then if nothing, he's one of those guys where that's what I'm wondering. Since he hasn't been cut already, is they're trying to see if they can get any type of trade offer for him before they decide to release him.
Well, and I don't know if you want to speculate teams or not, but I mean Philadelphia, he wants to go back to the Eagles. He said he wants to go back to Philadelphia, and they need a wide receiver. They could really use him. So to me, that makes a bunch of sense. Obviously, it matters how much they're willing to give up, but to put DeSean with Carson Wentz to help Wentz kind of dig himself out of the hole he's dug himself, I feel like that's a no-brainer for Philly.
Yeah, no, especially, I mean, Wentz, I feel like Wentz has been given a bad deal with injuries and whatnot, but I mean, I feel like DeSean has literally been wanting to go back to Philadelphia since he was released by Philadelphia. Probably like the day after that happened, he wanted to go back, you know, and then he's just messing around in Washington and Tampa Bay until he can go back there. So, I mean, a mid-round pick, I would be fine with that. In this year's draft, you know, it's hard to turn that down. Especially, it's, you know, you're basically getting a free pick to shed $11 million, you know.
Definitely.
So, that's the big one. Another big topic of talk that's been going around, especially since we have free agency and whatnot coming up first before the draft and before the combine, or before the draft, sorry, not the combine, is free agency. 3 guys, Corey. There's 3 guys that everybody in the world has been debating on the Buccaneers keeping or letting walk into free agency. And it's Quan Alexander, Donovan Smith, and Adam Humphries. Those are the guys. At the press conferences, at the combine, they asked him about this. Jason Light and Bruce Arians both reiterated that their priority right now in this free agency is to retain their own guys. I thought that was a very interesting quote. From both of them. So what do you feel about all 3 guys? Let's start with Quan Alexander, then Donovan, then Adam, and then give me kind of what you think is going to happen on whether or not they're going to return to the team or whether or not they're going to go into free agency.
Well, I will say that you could look at that quote as a PR quote. If you think of it from their perspective, that's a great way to win yourself over with the fans of like, hey, we're trying to get these guys back in here because they know that Quan and Hump are both fan favorites. Mm-hmm. Like, it makes sense for Light to say, yeah, our number one priority is to get these guys in here, which then turns it into, okay, so it looks like the players, if they leave, it's their fault because we tried. So anyway, I always try to go like 7 layers deep. Whatever any coach or GM says in this time during the combine and free agency, I don't believe them face value. So, but anyway, which one did you want to start with? Because
let's start with Quan Alexander. Let's start
Quan.
with
Quan. Okay. Yeah, Quan. I want him here, and I've said this before in other streams, my own streams, and I said this I think on Real Bucks Talk, and Peter Crew, and I've said this so many times. I want Quan back, and it's not just because of what he does, what he means on the field. It's because what he means to this team off the field. I really believe he's a huge leader. He was voted captain over Gerald McCoy for a reason. I think that his teammates love him and want him there. I think he's a glue guy. I think it would really suck to see him go. I want him back. Do I think he'll be back? I'm kind of 50-50 right now because from what I'm reading, what I'm hearing, it's almost, Quan, his agent is Drew Rosenhaus, who typically, he's a very famous agent for a reason and gets his players paid. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Quan wants. And I don't know if we can give him that, especially if we are indeed retaining Gerald McCoy. And then you have, well, I'll let you, if you want to comment on Quan, go for it.
So it's been reported he wants $10 million. I'd give him the $10 million. I'm obviously biased. I'd give Quan his money because Jason Light said it best. He said that Quan Alexander is the heartbeat of this defense, and I kind of have to agree with him a little bit. He really is probably one of the more outspoken, vocal leaders on this defense. and I think that that's pretty darn valuable, all things considered. Him and JPP, you know, those were two guys who just emerged last year as like really strong leaders, and I feel you need to have as many of those locker room leaders as you can get. They're obviously, the cap is bad. They have, I believe, 13.7 million, and a lot of these guys are commanding double digits. Those three guys, all of them are gonna possibly command as much as double-digit million per year dollar contracts. So it's hard, but I think that you should try and make the money work. You know, make a sacrifice here and there, and really try and bring back Quan. I understand the whole 3-4 defense and whatnot, and all these things. You know, and
something I heard, was it? I think it was a Peter Nation podcast again. It was Scott. The most recent one was Scott Reynolds when he was by himself. One thing that he was stressing is that this regime is really wanting speed on defense, and that's Quan and Levante. Both of their strengths are speed. So that's another thing where it's like the scheme fits. So, man, it's just tough with the price tag he commands, along with the other two guys you mentioned, and then along with Gerald McCoy. But I'm right there with you. I think it's worth doing what we can to keep him here.
Right, and I remember that is what Bruce Arians said. Bruce Arians said, I believe it was in his opening press conference or something along those lines, that, you know, the defense does have some work to do, and he said that they are going to work on some stuff defensively this offseason, but they want speed. And like what you just said, Quan Alexander, Levante David, they're fast guys.
Yeah.
You know, so, and there's a lot of good reasons to keep Quan, so I feel you should keep Quan. Moving on now to Donovan Smith real quick. That was another thing that Bruce Arians said that he wanted to work on, was the offensive line. What he meant by that, you know, he could just mean the right guard position. He could mean other things as well. Donovan Smith, it's been reported, he's going to possibly get $12 to $14 million a year. That's crazy. And they even asked Jason Light recently. They said, you know, Jason Light said, I don't envision a scenario basically where Donovan Smith is not a Buccaneer. And they said, well, if you can't sign him to a long-term deal, does that mean that you're going to use the franchise tag or some form of tag? And Jason Light said, most likely yes. So it seems like even if you can't get Donovan Smith on a long-term deal, he's going to get tagged. What are your thoughts on Donovan Smith? Does he deserve that kind of money? What do you think about all that?
Man, Donovan is just so lucky he plays left tackle. Just like... that's where we're at. It's just he's in that unfortunate. He's like the Andy Dalton of left tackles, just because he's such a middling guy. But if you let go of him, who are you going to replace him with? And that's just been his thing for the last couple of years. The market is not strong, both in draft and free agency, for left tackles. So the hope there is that the new coaching regime can finally whip his butt into shape so he can be more consistent. I think that he will be here next season. I do think it'll be franchise tag. I'll be okay. It depends on the numbers. If we sign him for another 4 years or so, it would have to be team friendly, though. I would be kind of disappointed if we signed him long term and then just had nobody behind him.
Right.
Because if he leaves, it's like, okay, so we're gonna move Caleb Benedict to left tackle. And then, hey, sorry, I'm keeping an eye on the chat over here, and AA or double A, he just said, I just got accepted to UF, y'all, so I'm going to say congratulations to you, go Gators, and that was some of the best years of my life at UF. I
just saw that as well. Congratulations, AA.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so yeah, with Donovan, it's like I would love to see him go somewhere else and be somebody else's problem, but I've got no solutions other than that, and that's... You don't want to be scared when you're making your team up, but you have to be practical and think, okay, what's most likely to happen here? If we let go of Donovan, we're probably going to replace him with somebody who either is a project or just, you know, maybe consistent, but consistently not as talented. So,
right,
those are options you have to weigh there.
I mean, especially in free agency, your only option you really have is Trent Brown. It seems like the Patriots are going to let him go into free agency and figure out a situation there. There's always the draft, Jonah Williams, Jawan Taylor out of UF. There's a couple of good guys at the top there. What are your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, if we did go that route, that I would be more okay with that. It's always a risk throwing a rookie over there at the most important position on the offensive line. protecting Jameis's blind side. But then again, Donovan was a rookie out there and played every game, so it can be done. And if we really do think that these guys would be a better option than Donovan, then I would feel okay. I would still be nervous. No matter what, I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be nervous with Donovan out there, and I'm going to be nervous with whoever we put in place of him. There's no locks out there. Now, if we were able to get Brown from the Patriots, that may be the most confident I'd be, but I don't see that happening.
Exactly. Couple of things, Corey. Is one, you've angered the chat because a lot of Knowles fans. And then two, I can see it now. You pay Donovan the high tier money, be it for 1 year or multiple years, and if he's still inconsistent, that's going to be horrific. I can see every week, week in and week out, why are we paying Donovan this much money? He sucks. It's bad. With how inconsistent he is, I can see a lot of people rightfully saying he doesn't deserve that kind of money. So, like what you said, it's going to be nerve-wracking regardless of who's playing left tackle, because it's either you have Trent Brown, who you've never seen play before, you have Donovan Smith, who we're not even sure if he deserves top tackle money, but he's going to get top tackle money, or you got a rookie who is completely unproven. So it's going to be a stressful left tackle situation, ain't it?
Yes.
That one will be interesting. Keep in mind, right now, at this moment, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers only have $13.7 million in cap space. Can't stress that enough. Or maybe it's a little bit more. What if it's 14.7, 13.7, whatever it is, they don't have a lot of money. If they pay Donovan Smith the money that everybody's been saying he's going to get paid, that's it. We don't have any more money,
Well, that's why I think, guys like, I definitely think it's possible and probable that we get rid of Djax and McCoy. Just to think about the amount of money that opens up.
Right.
To give us some wiggle room there. So
exactly. And then finally, Adam Humphries. This one probably has me either the saddest or the second saddest, because if this offseason, not only does Adam Humphries leave for free agency and goes to a different team, but Quan leaves and goes to a different team, that'll hurt. That'll hurt. Not just in terms of fans and, what we do, but just in terms of the team's production, It'll hurt a lot.
It'll hurt, and that's another. I mean, you're right on the money there. Hump is another glue guy, another locker room guy. He's a guy that Jameis loves, and has been solid for us. I mean, he's Mr. First Down for us. Rarely ever drops, and has just been so invaluable for us. And I hate to see him go, but it's just one of those things where he has played himself out, and I would be super happy for him. I mean, undrafted free agent going and getting a $10 million contract with a team. I mean, that's happy for him, but I think he's gone. I just don't see a way we can hold on to him at this point.
No, I really don't think there's a chance either. Hello, Antonio. How are you, my friend? Still keeping an eye on the chat now. I'm seeing your guys' comments. Not a lot of people liking Donovan Smith. Everybody's saying Humphries is gone too. I saw one comment say, Humphries is expected to get $10 to $14 million. I saw that as well. Could you imagine if Adam... there's no way he gets $14 million.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
I'm sure even he would be like, what is happening,
Yeah.
8 million, probably. I would say 8 million is more likely. 10 million at the absolute most. Because right now, the highest slot cornerback getting paid right now is Albert Wilson, I believe, and he's making $8 million a year. So, it's going to suck, but, Humphries, it's looking like he's not coming back.
Well, and honestly, you might have, we haven't seen much of him, but Justin Watson might be the next Adam Humphries. I mean, he might be enough of a red zone target where we could throw him in the slot. I mean, you just don't know, and mix around Godwin in there. And I would love to hold on to Hump, especially to get rid of Djax. But again, you mentioned the cap situation. We can't hold on to all these guys. And unfortunately, a slot receiver is just bottom of the food chain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think out of all three of the guys that we just talked about shortly was Humphries is gone. Is most likely gone, And I obviously the most likely want to come back Donovan Smith, and who knows what's going to happen with Quan. I think it's more likely than not that he's going to come back. I feel they're going to really, really try and make that money work. But it'll be unfortunate to see Humphreys go. But, you know, there are a lot of options that we can replace him with. Not just in free agency. There's a couple of guys in free agency, such as guys like John Brown and J.J. Nelson, who have worked with Arians before, and Arians loves those guys. So those are a couple of guys that you could probably get for the cheaper side of contracts that you can bring in. But, of course, I mean, Bucs don't have any money right now, so we have to really figure out a situation. Jason Light said as well, you have to make some sacrifices. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But right now, those three guys, you know, it's been pretty stressful. But taking a quick look ahead into free agency right now, Corey, there's a couple of names out there, like I said, that have been linked to the Bucs. A couple of wide receivers, J.J. Nelson, John Brown. Biggest name, Tyrann Mathieu. What do you think about that one? Especially with the comment of moving MJ Stewart to safety. Do you feel that there's a spot here for Tyrann Mathieu? Because, you know, it seems like things are getting a little clogged up right now in terms of the safety position with guys like Justin Evans, Jordan Whitehead, and MJ Stewart.
I do. I do think there's room for him here because you don't know how MJ is going to turn out at safety. I mean, it's an experiment at this point. It's good to have somebody with versatility like MJ who can plug in at corner if we're, you know, if we're in need injury wise or anything like that. And then you don't know how good he's going to be at safety. So I think obviously at the right price, I would love to have Mathieu here. And, you know, you talk about losing a glue locker room guy in Quan Alexander. I feel like Tyrann Mathieu could eventually replace that, you know, that presence in the locker room because he's the same kind of like fiery leader. Everybody in the locker room loves him. You know, whatever it is, for whatever reason, he's got that. I mean, if you watched the All or Nothing on Amazon with the Cardinals, like people just loved Tyrann Mathieu, and they were heartbroken when he got injured. It's very similar to how I felt like our guys felt with Quan. So I would like to add Mathieu here. I've been a big fan of his for a while, and I can see it happening just because he has that relationship with Bruce Arians. They've got a really close relationship. So
right, and
I feel like we need all the help we can get in the secondary.
No, absolutely. That was, again, that's another thing that Arians has reiterated multiple times. You know, they're going to work on things defensively. He's fully confident in our skill players and whatnot. The offensive line he wasn't as confident in, and defensively, you know, he only had a couple of guys that he pointed out specifically. And that was guys like Jason Pierre-Paul and Levante David. Those were two of the main guys that he's really pointed out to. You know, but he did say that we have a really nice young core in terms of overall as a team, and I think getting a guy like Tyrann Mathieu would just be the perfect transition. You know, of a guy who can teach the entire defense or the entire secondary how things work and stuff like that. His price tag. Somebody asked what his contract would be in terms of price tag. I don't know if he's going to get $12 million a year. He just took $7 million last year, and with how many just insanely talented safeties there are, there's a lot, Corey. I don't know if you've seen the list of safeties that are available, but like two of the top guys Bucs fans want right now are Landon Collins and Tyrann Mathieu. I can see those guys getting $8 million, maybe $9 million. But just with how talented these safeties are, we could see another situation where the safety free agent class is suffering for another year, you know, because there's just too many good safeties out there.
Or they could drive their price up. It may be super competitive. We'll see how it goes. I would actually, you know, and you asked about Mathieu. I would actually rather have Landon Collins than Tyrann Mathieu. That's just a preference thing, but just because, you know, Mathieu has been injured and all that stuff. But I would take either one. I would take either if we can afford them. That's the thing, is we have to make the space for these guys if we're going to sign them.
Right, absolutely. We won't have any money after just one contract, so we got to figure that out. Another thing that's been going on, Corey, is there's been a lot of talk about adding free agent, or not adding a veteran cornerback via free agency or via trades. First thing I want to ask about is talking about trading. Do you see any type of player the Buccaneers can trade as, maybe not just in the secondary, but also just in general?
Like who we can trade of our own or who we can trade for?
Trade for.
Because
I've seen a lot of people say, we can still get Patrick Peterson, but for me, there's no way, because the Cardinals hate us right now. You know, we took Bruce Arians from them.
Yeah, I don't see us getting Peterson just simply because I believe them when they doubled down on their relationship with him. Like they had that whole situation where he had a meeting with Steve Keim and they ironed everything out, and it's just like they've really gone out of their way to talk about how committed they are to Patrick Peterson, and so I just believe them on that side. So I don't think he's even for sale.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a pipe dream personally,
mm-hmm.
unless we gave them way too much.
Right.
So.
Another guy out there is Chris Harris of the Denver Broncos. People have thrown his name around. Do you see the Buccaneers trading for a veteran cornerback at some point, or no?
I would like to see it, just simply because of the kind of the question marks that we have. I mean, Grimes is gone, and so now we have Vernon Hargreaves, who still is a question mark, even though I have some faith in him left. A lot of people don't. Mm-hmm. And you have Carlton Davis just in his second year. And then it gets pretty thin. You have Ryan Smith, and Jay Stewart's being moved to safety. So we need corners. We need them.
Yeah, that was one of the more interesting things I saw was because coming in, I thought, well, we have some depth. MJ Stewart, Carlton Davis, Vernon Hargreaves, but MJ Stewart, we only have two corners. Essentially in the way of Carlton Davis and Vernon Hargreaves. Brent Grimes' contract's running out. Javian Elliott's contract, I believe, is run out. Devontae Harris, all these different types of guys, their contracts are running out. They're going to need more corners.
Right, and so I if we were to trade for a position, I would want it to be corner because I feel like that's the position I'm most nervous about on this team, just because I feel like we're super thin. Like I have all the confidence in the world in Davis, and I really believe that Vernon Hargreaves can turn things around. But if one of them gets hurt, then the dominoes start to fall there, and we're in a bad position again. So.
Do you see a situation where they sign Tyrann Mathieu and play him at cornerback in certain situations?
Why not?
Because he used to do it in Arizona.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get kind of creative that way. People are wanting us to draft Greedy for that reason.
Yep, I see the chat talking about Greedy Williams.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't be against it. I feel like that's a thing where I would hope we would trade back before drafting him. Just because drafting a corner top 5 is just, if we can get picks and then draft him, then I'd be okay. But then again, who was it? What's his name from Cleveland was drafted number 4 overall, and he's done great. So what do I know?
Denzel Ward.
Yeah, Ward.
Yeah.
So there's that too. So if Greedy Williams is Denzel Ward, then I'd be completely fine with it. That's just a high price to pay usually for a corner.
There you go. So Corey, we're gonna wrap this up real quick. It's 5:40 now. Got a few minutes here left. I want to ask you 2 more things. We cover a lot, but I want to cover 2 more things. One, we just talked about players that the Buccaneers might trade for. Who do you think a couple of players are the Buccaneers might trade away? Some of the names that are floating around here at the Combine. And then number 2, Bruce Arians has talked about it a lot, about the needs on this team being mainly defensively and then certain things on the offensive line. The draft is on its way. That's what a lot of the chat's been talking about for the entirety of this live stream. I want to get your thoughts on what do you feel the Buccaneers' needs are for this draft and where and how do you feel they should be addressed, be it through free agency or maybe in the draft a little bit. So let's talk about the first one. Yeah. What players do you feel might be traded away on this team?
I definitely think, I think of the positions in which we're deep, and then also the guys that we talked about. Djax could be a guy we could get probably a mid to late round pick for. Gerald McCoy probably could garner maybe not a 3rd round, maybe a 4th round. And, we have Cameron Brate. I know we've we've heard them say, hey, Cameron Brate's staying. I wonder if that's another thing where it's like, yeah, he's staying until he's not. Yeah. The tight end spectrum is not – there's not a whole lot of really great tight ends in the league right now. And we have one of them already in O.J. Howard. So and I think Cameron Brate can be that if he is shipped to another team and makes him a focal point. So I think Cam Brate – but the thing is, a tight end is a tight end, and they don't usually get a lot of – return on trades for them either. So it'd probably be another mid to late round pick. I really don't see anybody else that would be trade worthy that I can think of. People are talking about, I know Tom Bassinger was saying how we need to get rid of JPP.
I saw that. Nihilist Tom is at it again, okay?
I actually really do like Thomas Bassinger. I think he brings a great he makes a great devil's advocate. I mean, he backs up his arguments really well with numbers and stuff. I think he doesn't. He really just he goes straight to numbers, and he numbers are gospel for him. And I think it's more complicated than numbers. And if you get rid of a guy, JPP, who came in and was a leader in the locker room, you're just not there. The immeasurables that you have out of JPP, things you can't quantify or put on paper. That's the reason I wouldn't want to get rid of him. And it's not just his 12 sacks or whatever. It's just he was so good for this team. Why would we get rid of him? What would that say to the other players in the locker room if we were to do that?
Tom is very Bill Belichickian in that way.
Which hey, that's not a bad comparison. I mean,
no, it's not at all. But that is what he reminds me of. Is very Bill Belichick-esque. But the second part of my question I was going to ask you was talking about draft needs.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bruce Arians, he felt defense needs to be worked on, offensive line needs to be worked on. What do you feel needs to be worked on coming through the rest of this offseason in free agency, and especially in the draft, because the Buccaneers are going to have really nice opportunities there to draft some impact players, having top 5 picks in every round.
Yeah, so it's great that this is a defensive heavy draft for us, since I feel like that should be the focus on this team, especially with the scheme change. The coaches can go out and get guys that they want, fits their scheme. So that's good on one hand. As far as that first pick, I kind of want to lean towards offensive line, maybe like Jonah Williams, simply because that is a shallow position. So if you have a premium spot at a shallow position, I feel like you can't just wait, because the guy, when it goes like this after that first round, you don't want to be stuck with a guy that's like a project like Alex Kappa. I feel like if we have a need there at tackle, and hey, we signed Donovan Smith to a franchise tag, we should probably get a guy that is the contingency plan, and a guy that we know has the talent there. So now, just because they're the best tackles in this draft doesn't mean they're the best tackles. So that's where I leave it to the experts to kind of see if they're worth that kind of draft stock. But the part I'm most nervous about on this team, obviously I said before, is corner, but also offensive line. So I kind of am leaning towards offensive line. Really, honestly, what I want is for us to trade back, because I feel like there's so many skill positions that people want. I mean, specifically quarterback and wide receiver now with DK Metcalf, that I would be actually disappointed if we don't trade down in some way. And if we trade down and then pick a defensive player like Devin White or Greedy or somebody like that, then I'll be completely okay.
Right. Well, there you go. Well, Corey, thank you so much for joining me and talking about pretty much everything that has occurred for this offseason so far. I'm going to have you on a lot more on the channel, talking about all the moves that are going to be made in free agency, in the draft, if there's a trade. Can't wait to talk to you about all of this. It's going to be an exciting offseason. We have a lot of new stuff that's happening. So, another exciting time for Bucs fans,
Definitely. Thanks for having me again. Hey, by the way, I'm going to try to go up to Nashville to the draft.
Are you really?
Yeah, I said it's a 3-hour drive for me, so I'm going to try to make it happen. And I'm thinking about taking a camera. We'll see how it goes, but
okay.
We'll see. But at the very least, I'm going to go there. So follow me on social media at The Play Reaction. I'll definitely tweet about it if I go, and I'll Instagram about it too. So
absolutely, go check out Corey's YouTube channel at The Play Reaction. Like I said at the beginning of the show, awesome Bucs content. He does some awesome things on that channel. Really amazingly edited in terms of all the different types of work that he does. Go check that out. You can follow him on Twitter at The Play Reaction, on Instagram at The Play Reaction. Corey, again, thank you for joining me. To everybody watching this live stream, thank you so much for joining us throughout the entirety of the live stream. It has been a lot of fun. And as always, we will see you guys in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.